Welcome to the Travel Business Unpacked, where passion meets possibility. Here's your host, Meredith Calloway.
Okay, welcome to another podcast for Travel Business Unpacked. On today's episode, I have a very, very special mother-daughter team as my guest. I'm very, very excited for this episode. Without further ado, let me go ahead and introduce today's guest. It's the mother-daughter duo of Sterling Journeys. It is Lise-Marie and Sterling Wertanzl. Welcome to today's podcast, ladies.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Awesome. Let's just give a little bit of a backstory to why we are hosting this lovely team on the podcast today. So there's, the podcast is for people who are currently in the business, in the profession of selling travel, but it's also for people who are considering getting into this business. And I know that an incredibly common thought and question people have is, can I work with my spouse? Can I work with my mother? Can I work with my daughter? Can I work with my father? Can I work with another kind of relative? And it, that is definitely a great thing to do if it works. And I can see why a lot of people would like to do something like that. But I also know that there's a lot of people who don't ultimately take that plunge, take that leap of faith because maybe they're afraid of how the dynamic will change in the relationship. So that's why I think it's fantastic to have success stories and examples to inspire others who might want to consider taking the same journey. So that's one of the many journeys that Sterling Journeys has taken. So let's go ahead and dive in there first. Lise-Marie, tell us a little bit about how you actually started Sterling Journeys and take us to the point where just before you had hired Sterling.
Wonderful. So in 2012, I started Sterling Journeys. I named it Sterling Journeys because the word sterling means strong and valuable. And of course, in luxury travel, that to me worked perfectly. But somewhere in the back of my mind, for a young middle schooler who was probably 12, I thought, wouldn't it be wonderful one day? And of course, at that time, she would have said, Mom, never in a million years. But anyway, I did start Sterling Journeys, was very proud of the name and worked hard, for many years, but was with a different host and finally came upon GTN, which has changed my life, my business, and the whole kit and caboodle. And certainly we've become much more successful since joining GTN. And part of the benefit of being in GTN, besides, well, there's a myriad of benefits, but especially if you're in TPC, which is the Top Producers Club, you have an opportunity to work with the executive team on a one-on-one basis, and they really deep dive into your business and help you figure out what's working, what isn't working, and sometimes give you some really incredible advice that maybe is scary and maybe not. And at the time, I'm fast forwarding, but it has been an amazing ride these last 13 years. But 2 years ago, I had my meeting, and I was really at that time I needed to grow because I was working awfully hard, and limited with what I could actually produce. And I had Sterling doing, she was in her master's program, but she was working part-time for me doing itineraries, which was wonderful because that's a big part of your day. So that was really helpful. She did that for 2 years for me prior. And I was explaining to you, Meredith and Vanessa, in my meeting that I wish I could find someone just like Sterling. She's just so fast and smart and good and all of these things. And here you go, and you say, well, you have to hire Sterling. And I said, oh, she's never going to come to me. Never. I can't
I also
afford
think you
her.
said I can't
I
afford her.
can't
Yeah.
afford her. Because here she was with her master's, and I knew I had to give a real
And she
salary and
was
not.
looking at, other
Yeah.
offers that
Yes,
were,
she was.
pretty nice pay bases.
Exactly. Exactly. So it was intimidating for me, who had, maybe a part-time VA or whatever, and, was unclear whether or not I could afford her.
Mm.
And your advice, you said to me, what, Meredith?
I said you can't afford not to hire her.
That's exactly what you said.
And if you don't hire her, you're never going to be able to grow the business the way you want to grow the business, because you always have to hire ahead of growth.
Correct. And I think the thing that probably scares most people about growing and hiring is just the training process. Like, how am I going to get through this? I don't have
Mm-hmm.
time to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And the benefit about training somebody I knew, it's so many of the small things that I don't have to worry about. I don't have to worry about work ethic. I didn't have to worry about a lot of things that people don't know if you've interviewed, but you still don't really know how that person works.
Yeah.
So I left that meeting. I literally called Sterling from the car. I gave her an offer, and she said, I'll think about it. Okay, now we're caught up.
Oh my goodness. I think that's awesome. That's a great, great place for me to introduce Sterling, because um look, this is a business where the average age is much higher. We're more mature, and we really want to attract more young talent into this profession, because it's such, I came up with this phrase recently, that we live this enviable life in the travel industry. How many times do you have people say to you, what do you do? Or how do you get that job? How do I get the job that you have? How do I get to travel like you get to travel? And it's not necessarily easy. There's no silver bullet, and you have to have patience, and you have to have strategy, and you have to have um, focus, and you have to be willing to suppress your need for instant gratification. But there is absolutely an enviable life at ultimately down the road on this path. And so, Sterling, it's amazing to have people like you in the industry. And by the way, congratulations, you were just named to the 30 under 30 list by Luxury Travel Advisor magazine. I mean, that's an amazing, amazing award, recognition, because they only named 30 people in the industry. And I know that the application process is quite thorough. So tell us how, like, when you had to think about it, tell us about how you felt when you started working for your mom more on the part-time basis, and did it occur to you to even think about it as a full-time career?
Yeah. So when I was working part-time, I was juggling a lot of different things because I was still a full-time grad student and I was also teaching at the university with my graduate assistantship. And then I was also working with my mom doing just kind of client care itinerary stuff. So lots was happening. And the master's program is only 2 years. So you kind of have a short turnaround to really figure out what you're going to do next. And when I entered my master's program, I fully thought that I was going to continue on to get my PhD. And most people that enter a master's program after 2 years decide to scrap that idea because the 2 years of the master's program is pretty grueling for any field. So anyone that's done any graduate program can tell you that. But I was juggling other offers, doing other interviews. I think when my mom called me to offer me that job, I was about to go into another Zoom call with another company and had to just kind of, okay, that's suddenly here and exciting for me to think about. But the other offers were all very analytical jobs, very much spreadsheet data analysis oriented, which would be jobs that I was qualified for. as in directly qualified based on my coursework and based on experience I would have had throughout school, but not necessarily a passion job or a job that would really feel like the right fit personality wise. I think that's something that a lot of young people who go into school and choose a major and really follow into that path kind of forget about of, I think I should be flowing into this feeder career instead of choosing something that really suits your personality, because when something is really meant for you personality wise, I feel that there's so much more room to grow into that kind of role. So that's what I was juggling when the offer came. And we both just decided, okay, I think this is a great jump for both of us. And I was living in Indiana at the time. I still am. I decided to stay in Indiana and work remotely, and then, come down to Florida every now and then for obviously visiting my parents, but so we can do some one-on-one work prep things. And while with any job, you start out a little rusty, you're in a training period. And I think what my mom did really well in training me was just put me in full speed ahead, let me absorb and observe everything. She brought me into a TPC mastermind meeting like a week into
I
accepting the
remember
position.
that.
And that's where I got to meet pretty much everybody, well, other fellow TPC members. Um, and that just dove right in, meeting partners, just doing things kind of all at once. And you kind of embrace the fact that you're new and you're green to something. We were just talking about this earlier. With our industry and the kind of community that we build, people receive newness, I think, a lot better, especially a young person coming up and saying, "Hi, I'm new and I'm excited to meet people." Whereas I think when younger people join corporate careers, they have to put on the fake it till you make it kind of facade.
Yeah.
Whereas here, you don't really have to fake it because it's okay that you're new, and people like to share. People like to show you around, show you the ropes, give you the
Mm.
opportunity and the space to grow. Because growth by experience is really what works. And then she also sent me, well, we went together to our first Virtuoso Travel Week, like a month or two into the full-time job.
Wow.
And I mean, yeah, full speed ahead. Put me in front of partners, might have a little hand holding here and there, but starting off early and really just catapulting right into it has set me up so well for where I am now, just coming back from ILTM Con alone and just comparing the way that I'm able to communicate with partners now on my own at a much bigger scale trade show a year
Yeah.
later is really amazing to reflect on. So that's a long-winded answer for from the time I accepted the position and how it's
Yeah.
been till now.
So let me get some idea of where your business was, Lise-Marie, when you, I mean, invested in a very big way. Obviously, you're investing in your own family, you're investing in, your business. And in some ways it's easier to do it that way, but in some ways, I'm sure that the compensation you guys agreed on was probably at least twice of what you had kind of wrapped your head around that you were prepared at that time to bring on. So how did you get around that?
I think sometimes, well, you guys are amazing at telling us, we have to have the mindset. We have to sometimes just jump, and you have to trust, right? You just
Yeah.
have to trust that everything is always working out for you. And
Yeah.
I think, I knew that my time would be well invested. It's always something I think many of us are willing to pay, but we want to know that that money is really being invested this in someone who works incredibly hard and um, is meticulous and basically, I got lucky because she's kind of a mini me, so she thinks like I do, and I had
Mm.
her immediately jump into my inbox, which was a huge growth spurt. So from where I was in May when I hired her, we almost tripled our business by the end of the year. And that was because she freed me up to do what I do. And
Hmm.
she did, you know, she managed to keep me going. And it was amazing. It was kind of limitless in that
Yeah.
if you have the right support, if you have the right people, you know, you can just keep going. And it's just that,
So
yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say, so that growth that you had, you almost tripled in size
Yeah.
from the moment you hired her to the end of that year. That's like just over six
Yes.
months. You
Hmm.
tripled your sales.
I did.
Um, and that was all organic. There was no like strategic marketing plan to triple the business. It was just organic.
Yeah, it really was. I think what it did is it allowed me not to spend hours on the menial stuff that first of
Hmm.
all, I'm not a numbers person. All the back of the office, the admin stuff, that was just not me. I'm kind of more of a out there in front
Yes.
rainmaker kind of person. So the more people I met, the more people booked and the more we got it serviced and it was shocking actually by the end of the
Yeah.
year to see the numbers, and I mean, we went from not even being, you know, really on the map to being like number 11, which was huge because that was a huge, so we doubled the manpower and tripled the revenue. So that
That's
was
amazing.
amazing. It was amazing.
It's like, let's do that every day.
Yeah, exactly. I think what Sterling touched on in the beginning though about the whole personality thing, I always said to her, I've known you a long time, Sterling. In fact, your whole life. And knowing who she is and how tactile she is, how social she is, all the things that I realized this really is the perfect path for her. She
Yeah.
is not a number cruncher. I mean, she doesn't want to
Yeah.
be in an office doing analytics. She could. I mean, most of us could do, just like you, Meredith, you had a corporate career. You
Right.
can do it, but
Yeah.
is that where you're really going to shine? So I think that's something that you think about when you're looking at your children, if you're
Hmm.
considering this, and you look at who they are and what part of your business would they really thrive in? Because we have a lot of facets to our business. So just because they might be a number cruncher doesn't mean they couldn't be involved. They certainly could. But it is definitely important to match that personality with
Yeah.
what we do.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point. I want to come back to that in a second, but there's one thing that I do want to like kind of document right here and anchor in on is a fundamental philosophy that we are teaching at GTN is this whole concept of you have to be willing to scale for growth. And there's two ways to scale. Really, it really comes down to two things to do to scale. Number one is you have to establish systems, procedures, processes, right? And automate them. That's number one. And the second way to scale or thing to do to scale is delegate. And sometimes that means hiring, and sometimes that means outsourcing, and sometimes that means, something else. But a lot of times that means hiring. And we say all the time. And actually, Sterling, I think I saw this. I did read the article in Luxury Travel Advisor. You were quoted for saying that one of the things that you've learned is hire ahead of growth. Because when you do, the growth almost always happens kind of spontaneously, like it happened for you. It happened very organically. You don't always have to be completely focused and strategizing on this marketing plan to grow the business. Now, there's nothing wrong with doing that, and that should be a part of your annual activities as a leader of a business. But I love that just bringing on someone at this level, the universe basically validated to you that this was the right hire. And that often
Definitely.
happens, and it'll happen very quickly. What are some tips or advice that you would give someone on either end? So this is a question for both of you. Um, you might have a parent who has a child that's graduated from college, and the parent's like, as a travel advisor, has a travel business, and they're thinking, oh shoot, my child doesn't have a job yet. Maybe I should put them to work in my own business. Um, we don't want everyone just ripping out and doing that
No.
because
Mhm.
of what you just said. Like, there has to be alignment. So how do you figure that out? Like, what are your thoughts? What are your tips to someone
Yeah.
considering it?
Well, I will say that, and this is something that she asked me several times, because of course, no child really wants to feel like, okay, it's a mercy hire, you know, because I don't have a job and you want to put me in there. I think, it's possible that you can certainly, during the time that they're looking for a job, if they want to do some part-time stuff, that's fine too. But I wanted her because I knew who she was. And I knew that if letting go and delegating, like you said, is probably the hardest thing in the world for us, because our clients it's so personal. It's such a personal business. And
Yep.
when we hand over the reins to something, we worry, are they going to be able to sustain it? Are they going to be able to keep it? I had some clients initially say, I think it's great you're bringing your daughter on, but I'd really like to stay and work with you. And moral of that is that he met Sterling and now he only wants to work with her. So, or we interchange it. Our clients have been amazingly accepting of working with either one of us because we are very similar. But
Yeah.
I think probably the biggest way I got her into what we were doing is to really put her in that inbox and have her listen to my phone calls, have her, like I said, we went right to a TPC meeting to observe and to absorb, and now she writes like I write. I will confess and say that sometimes she writes my emails for me in my voice, and it's amazing. So anyway, I want to say, um, don't do the mercy thing, because the kids will
Yeah.
always know it, and I have had to hammer into Sterling's brain that I would never pay this if I didn't really want you. And it has nothing, and she was perfectly hireable,
Right.
by somebody else.
Yeah.
But if there is somebody that really shows some interest, it's a sexy business. And I tried to
Yes,
keep
it is.
telling her, I mean, you can be in a tiny little cubicle or you can go to Cannes in Paris. I mean, I don't know. You tell me.
And that's a perfect transition to what I wanted to ask Sterling, which is, I mean, you lucked out.
Yes.
Your mother saved you from a boring cubicle.
I know.
But so there might be people listening who are, your age and at the same stage in life that you were in 2 years ago, graduating from college or maybe a master's degree. And oh my goodness, if I could have that opportunity, but they don't have a mom who has a travel business. What advice would you give someone like that?
Mm. Well, I think one of the things that holds back a lot of young people from going into our industry is because they think it's solely for entrepreneurs. And a large part of it is if you have the entrepreneurial itch. Um, but I joined an established agency in an effort to grow it into its next stage of growth. So, or like Kendall joined J5 in a different stage and has assisted in growing the business significantly. And so that's another way that we as young people contribute to the exponential growth of a business. I think a lot of young people can get intimidated by um, things that have to do with owning and running and operating a business solely on your own. But there are so many other avenues like joining a team or joining a partnership or
Yeah.
contributing in a different way, that still, I think, honestly counts as bringing a business from one place to another place. It doesn't always
Mhm.
have to be ground up. I mean, look at what we've done together in the past year and a half. That has been
Mhm.
insane exponential growth. But it wasn't necessarily from start of business to now. It was many years into the business and now. So really big stint of growth in a pretty short amount of time. Um, but I think a lot of us, and I speak for myself too, it's easy to get intimidated out there. Everyone is talented.
Mm,
Everyone
mhm.
went to a great school. Everyone studied
Yeah.
something impressive, right? And so it's easy to fall into the pattern of thinking that your major needs to feed into whatever career you're in, or whatever career you should do based on what you've studied or what you think you have experience in. But so many companies now, when they give out interviews or when they have applications, they put in personality tests, and things like that to really see if there's alignment more that's more related on people and character and how you fit on a team rather than just the hard and fast skills that can be listed on a resume. So, my advice to young people is just to open yourself up to things that might fit passions and personality and character and who you really are as opposed to what you think your resume says about you, because I think your resume and your person don't necessarily tell the whole story.
Yeah, for sure. Now, we know that there's a lot more to travel planning or travel advising than just planning, designing and planning itineraries. But having said that, what kind of travel experience? I mean, you grew up with your mom having a travel business. Your mother worked on cruise ships when she was young. So I would imagine you traveled a lot as a kid. What was your experience traveling?
Yeah, definitely. We traveled a lot, definitely in our younger years. My dad was still in the cruise industry. He still is in the cruise industry. So we're a
That's
very
right.
travel-oriented family. A lot of it was on cruise ships. And so we were exposed to a lot of different places, a lot of different cultures, a lot of different cuisines, which is very impressive for being young kids willing to try anything.
Everything. They ate
Everything.
everything.
Yes. Yes, not just within the confines of the kids club, definitely more adventurous, but I think that that really warmed me up to joining an industry that I didn't think I was well equipped for because I came from a communication studies background. I came from academia. I came from studying ancient Greeks and the classics and Aristotle and speech writing and things like that. And suddenly I'm jumping into luxury travel, which seemed like completely different realms.
Yeah.
But remembering that this is actually familiar territory and it's familiar in a way that's a little more heartfelt, not familiar in the, "Oh, I've made the conscious choice to attend a university and attend a graduate school," and it wasn't conscious in a resume way, it was conscious in a, "Oh, this is actually my life and my background that I don't think about as often," because when people ask where you come from or what your background is, we immediately go to the resume. We immediately go to
Mhm.
what we've studied or what we think we're qualified to do because our accomplishments and our accolades and our degrees and our fields of study are our first things that we think about when somebody asks us who we are, not necessarily how we grew up or who our parents are or the traditions you might have, and things like that. So for me, those core childhood memories warm me up to this environment. So it's really not foreign to me at all. And I think that kind of made for a natural progression.
Mm. So how have you figured out how to divide and conquer in terms of like, because I know that I don't think you're doing what you're responsible for now is what you first started doing, or is it? How have you kind of fallen into your nice little rhythm? And what are you doing?
So I'd say we have our concrete job descriptions. On paper, my mom is
That's
sales.
very, very wise to do that.
On paper, my mom is sales.
Mhm.
She is point of inquiry, consult. She would contact whichever partner, DMC, cruise line, that we'd want to work with, and she'll conduct the kind of proposal planning creation process. And she'll take it to point of booking. And then from point of booking to point of travel is where I come in, and our
Mhm.
client care kind of team that we're building. So
Love
that
that.
comes well, first invoicing and kind of all the back office things, insurance quotes, really building out the itinerary, filling in all of the gaps. If there are dining reservations that need to be made, spa appointments, any quick little adjustments, anything that's a la carte that we might need to add. So like transfers on either side of a cruise. Let's say if it was a cruise that we booked, if we wanted to add pre and post, if we wanted to do custom private shore excursions. Um, if there's any kind of minor issues or any quick calls that need to be made to enhance an experience. And then, of course, at the end of it all, getting final documents, packaging everything up, sending off the digital version, cross-checking and making sure everything's up to our quality standard, and then printing, binding, and mailing the physical itinerary, which we still do because I think paper still feels like something substantial. Sending off some goodies and mailing that off to the client, and we're both kind of the main points of contact, in addition to any emergency contacts with the DMC or the cruise line, etc. And then they go off to travel. But we do make it very clear that we are both kind of one and the same. I am in her brain, she is in mine, more so mine and hers. But really, we make it very clear that if you want to reach me or you want to reach her, if one of us is unavailable and the other is, everyone is up to date on everything. Everyone's up to speed on status, who we're working with, due dates. Really, we keep each other very much in the loop with everything that's going on. So let's say if someone does have an inquiry and decides to call me first, that's great, that's fine, we can lead that together, or, maybe I contact the DMC in that way, but everyone's copied on everything. So we really do have this collective mindset, in everything we do, even though we have on paper job descriptions. There are some things that I will almost always do, and that is the final documents, the itineraries, things like that. And there are a lot of things that she will almost always do, but we do keep it very collective, we, us. We really try to maintain that language kind of in everything. And most importantly, we maintain that language when something goes awry. We don't point any fingers. We don't say, well, you were on that account, or that was a task that was assigned to you. You did not do this, because figuring out who did what in a team of our size and in a partnership doesn't solve any problems. We need to be solution oriented much quicker than we need to figure out how the problem happened. So whether the mistake was done on my end or my mom's end, it's a we problem. It's a
Yeah.
we problem, and we fix it
Love that.
together and we move forward together. And even if one person made the mistake and the other didn't, the other person can learn, and it's an opportunity for both of us to move forward and make the business better. So we really maintain the collective, the we-ness, the us-ness, even when something goes wrong, because it's a waste of time to point fingers and to place blame. And I think that's also really important for a mother-daughter team, because that maintains our really good business rapport, but also our mother-daughter relationship.
I love that. There's so much wisdom in what you just said. It's fabulous. I mean, to begin with, the fact that you guys have broken down the sales cycle and assigned all the bits and pieces of the sales cycle to different people so that it's complete and every single client gets a consistent level of service, a consistent type of service. And my guess is you have a lot of repeat clients, right? And that's how the business keeps it keeps running itself, because you keep delivering on the service, and then they come back and they brag about their trips and they tell all their friends, and then their friends want to go on the trips that their friends went on.
Yeah, we are pretty much 100% referral. I mean,
Wow.
aside from some virtuoso referral, but really, we don't have a Google presence, in the sense
Yeah.
that people who come, we actually people have called us many times to say, oh, we'd like to do this for you, we'd like to do that. And I said, I don't want to do that. Thank you, Yelp. I don't want to do that, because that's
Yeah.
not my client. My client knows who my client is and they will refer my client to me. Like, in other words, it's kind of, they all get it. They all know who that is.
That is one of, I think, something that sets you and your business apart, Lise-Marie, is the fact that you are such a rainmaker. That's part of your brilliance. For somebody who's listening, who's just, right now still just dreaming of having a travel business, selling luxury travel, thinking, but letting all of those doubts creep in, I don't have the right friends, I don't live in the right community. What would you say to someone who has this kind of unbound passion to try and do and build something like what you've built, but has a lot of doubts and fears about doing it?
I had a lot of doubts and fears about doing it, and I was well traveled, and I was married to somebody who traveled. Because I didn't want to sound stupid. I didn't want to not know what I was talking about. And I feel like people know, if you're just kind of faffing and, people know. And I kept thinking, I got to get a good education. I got to get an education. And at the time, my agency owner said, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Just go out and sell. She was a brilliant salesperson, but I really felt that that was just something I couldn't do. Now, at the time, I didn't know GTN. I would have actually done your TMBA. I mean, I would have done the travel university, which is, I think, what I would say to anybody, because the minute you have a little bit under your belt, you can actually have those conversations and it does flow. And you do start to understand that this is not about, we keep saying sales. I really don't look at it that way at all. I really look at it as though I am a service provider and
Yeah.
I am solving a problem for somebody. In other words, they want to go somewhere. Where do they want to go? What do they want to do? I am curating and helping them come to that decision, but I don't care whether it's 5,000 or 10,000 if it's going to make them happy, because at the end of the day, then they're going to come back. I really feel you have to do that. You have to build this rapport by just doing what they really are looking for.
Yeah.
And then they trust you. And then the next time it's easier and easier. And so education, I think education, it's not a big commitment. What is it, 9 months? I don't know.
The travel MBA program is 12-month program.
12 month program. But you will be so well organized business wise and then ready to really take on destinations and partners and all of that. But I did do it without, and I did a lot of trial and error. So what I would say is the first 6 or 7 years of my business were kind of all over the place. Didn't know what I was doing.
Same.
So exactly.
Been
So
there.
I would say is definitely cut that time in half. Do the education. Just do it for a year. You will have jumped 6 years over me,
Yeah.
before I ever really started to get off the ground. So that would be my and as far as meeting people, you're going to meet them everywhere. But I do think that you're going to be best off meeting them and having relationships and then talking about what you do.
Right.
Nobody will, it just kind of organically happens. If you're happy and traveling and enjoying, and loving what you do, people want to know what you're doing. What are you doing? Oh my gosh, I want to travel. So
what I love about your answer is that it puts into Lise-Marie's words, the first philosophy, which is in terms of, grounding yourself and your whole message in your brilliance. Your brilliance is really understanding how to deliver on a fabulous trip. And when you anchor your whole message and your whole branding in your own brilliance, your marketing, which yours is much more passive marketing, right? It's referral based. There's not, you don't have this like very concrete lead gen sales funnel going on, but you're still marketing and you still have a message. and you have found a way to anchor that message in your own brilliance. And when you do that, there's a magical shift that occurs. And what that magical shift is, you stop from trying or coming from a get place. I'm going to get more clients. I'm going to get more bookings. I'm going to get more sales.
It's a
And you
give.
shift into a giving place.
Mhm.
And on the receiving end of it, you can feel the difference. And you said it. That's exactly what you said, is you have to realize that you're providing a service. You're not trying to sell travel. You're not trying to get someone to book their travel with you. You are trying to help them have a better experience. You're trying to give
Exactly.
something to them. So I love, love, love that. Okay, so now I think we're running out of time, so I want to end with the travel candy part of the show. Um, so I want both of you to share your favorite, oh my God, pinch me, I can't believe I get to do this for a living moment.
Oh my gosh. You start, Sterling, because I think yours might have just happened
I know
recently.
you were just in it.
Yes. Well, obviously I just came back from a long, lovely stint. ILTM was only a small part of it, but getting to fly to Paris and to stay somewhere out of partnership on an invitation, which is
Yeah,
crazy. And that's not just any regular property. It was a gorgeous Sofitel property in Paris. And the fact
yeah.
that you get to meet these people and they welcome you to your property and say, "We'd love to have you. Please come stay," is
Mhm.
fabulous. And then getting to wake up to a beautiful sunrise over the Mediterranean in Cannes, France, to go to a trade show was crazy. That was a few pinch me moments for sure.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
being in that environment. And then flying to London to stay at a beautiful red carnation property, the Rubens
Oh,
Palace, and then getting to go and visit all these lovely red carnation properties and to go behind the scenes at the changing of the guard, um, and to go inside the Churchill War Rooms thanks to our partner Noteworthy.
I was
Those
going to ask, was
were
that
all
noteworthy? Yeah, it was.
absolutely incredible, and nothing I would have ever dreamed of. I had never been to London, so this was my first time, and so that got everybody really excited, um, but I really do believe that seeing something with your own eyes
Yeah,
helps us advise so much
yeah.
better,
So just for the view or listeners who don't understand, just few words on what ILTM Con is.
Yes, it stands for the International Luxury Travel Market, and it's probably one of the, or maybe the best, luxury travel trade shows,
Yeah.
that happens throughout the year. It is often described
Invite
as
only.
the only, often described as the creme de la creme of conferences, trade shows, where
Mhm.
anyone who's anybody in our field comes and puts on absolutely incredible exhibitions. Hotel brands will recreate lobbies and have bars and baristas and bartenders in their exhibits. And we
Mhm.
come and we meet partners in this extravagant, over the top um, booths, and you truly feel like you are seeing these partners and the products that they offer in a completely new light than, let's
Mhm.
say, sitting at a table and meeting, like a speed dating kind of situation. It is
Yeah,
so much cooler than
yeah.
anything I would have ever imagined. So it was amazing, and yes, the creme de la creme of travel shows.
Yeah,
And
and
I was
it's
lucky enough.
also comped, so, and you have to be invited. You have to have a certain level of sales, and even if you have the level of sales, you're not always guaranteed an invitation because they're few and far between. So that's fantastic. So is your mother ever going to get to go again, or
I'll let
I
her
told her,
go.
it's mine next time.
It's
But
great to have it next time. We'll
okay.
alternate.
All right. My favorite, my pinch me, I can't believe I leave this life, for me, was Africa. I mean, it's like it
yes?
just cannot, I cannot
Uh,
tell you. The first time I went to Africa, which was South Africa, I thought I had died and gone to heaven. And I thought, I can't possibly I don't know how I can even put this into words, and after that, I mean, I came home and just my talking about my experience, my clients all wanted to go. I mean, it was just like
Yeah.
it was so easy to do. Then I went to Botswana. I mean, I got to tell you, this business is the most incredible business in the world where you have an opportunity. I mean,
Yeah.
it is business. I mean, you are there to see things, but the experiences that you have that you can share with your clients is exactly is exactly the point. And it works. And it works because I couldn't shut up about it. I still can't shut up about Africa. It's my favorite thing to sell, really. I mean, and when I say
Yeah.
sell, I just mean to, there's not a single person that we have sent to Africa that has not said, oh my gosh, this is not my last trip to Africa. Of course it's not.
Yes. Yeah.
And we
And
always say, oh, this is your bucket list. You're gonna, when are you gonna do this again? Of course, we know that you're gonna do it again as soon as you go there. But at least, so anyway.
yeah, Africa is definitely a trip that you don't want to, you know, tie the budget up on.
Yeah, yeah. No,
tie, tie
you have
tie
to
the
do it
budget
well.
tighter on. No, 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 no. No, Africa's the one where you just like, okay, whatever. No holds barred.
No, it's a dream, and it's interesting because my first trip, I wasn't actually that terribly excited. I received an invitation. It was a FAM, and it was with African Travel, and I thought, okay, I really should know what this is about. I mean, I'm going to go because people talk about, I'm going to go, but yeah. And I had no idea. I had no idea that my life would be forever changed. And it
Yeah.
was just, but I was so unprepared because it wasn't like I was dreaming about going to Africa. I wasn't.
Yeah.
So now I use that to people who don't even have it on their list. And I think, you know,
Yeah. I know.
gotta have that on your list. So anyway.
So last question, what are you looking forward to in 2025? And you can each answer that.
You can go
You want
first.
to go?
I went first.
I am looking forward to um, growing and settling into. We've had some growth. We have some ICs that are just brilliant that have joined, and we are growing. We have
I meant to
another.
ask you, how big is your team? About how many
So
people do you have?
so we just lost our marketing person to another job, but we're gonna fill that again. But we have um, two ICs and another admin, and Sterling and I. But
Okay.
the ICs are high producing.
We have
Um,
three ICs.
oh, we do.
Well, Narmada, Kara,
Oh
and
my God, Narvina, shoot. Sorry. Yes, three
So
ICs.
you have
Thank
three
you.
ICs
But
and then
Narmada
two
is our
admins.
Yeah, Narmada is our air specialist.
Yes,
So I
she's
think of
amazing.
her. So I think of her in that capacity, which is wonderful to know that we have an air specialist.
Yeah.
But I think just to, I do appreciate the systems and writing everything down. And I think as we grow, it's always a little more challenging to figure out, okay, now what's going to work for the team? How are we going to be brand congruent? So I'm really a stickler for the brand. Like, in other words, we really want to work within our brand colors and our visions and so I think that's something that is important because an IC that's working for GTN can have their own company, but an IC that's working for Sterling Journeys will be part of Sterling Journeys.
Yes, correct. Actually, I want to slip a question in before I let Sterling answer that last
Mhm.
question, which is like down the road, Lise-Marie, what is
Oh,
your vision
yes. Okay.
for, do you want Sterling to take over the
Yes,
business? I
of
mean, it is in her
course.
name.
Yeah. It's funny. I always say, build it and they will come. So it's pretty heady to say, oh my gosh, there's a company named after me already. So,
And she's
but yes,
12, poor thing.
she's 12, poor thing. But it is a strategy. It is my exit. That this is
Yeah,
something
it's
I do love. I'm not in any hurry, but my husband's going to retire next year, and we are starting that process, and I will taper off and she will grow the company in the ways that she needs it to grow, and eventually it will be hers, and
I love
whatever.
that.
Yeah. So
And I
it's
think there are a
just,
lot of people who would envy that. And you've figured that out too. So that's amazing.
yeah, I think knowing that my clients are going to be served in the same way that I serve them
Hmm.
is very, very uh well, it makes me very happy because I know that they're going to be in good hands,
Yeah.
for as long as Sterling does this. And I think when you pour your heart and soul into an entrepreneurial venture, the thing that is the most heartbreaking is the idea that it will no longer exist because
Hmm.
you've already invested so much. So having that plan and that legacy is is so rewarding for me just
Yeah.
because you want to leave something behind. So
Yeah. I love it. Okay, Sterling, what are you looking forward to in 25?
Well, not to be unoriginal, but I do kind of echo the same excitement because we've had such an exciting year of roller coaster changes, which were fun. And, I like change. We're both very much into change. Some people prefer things to be consistent, and we really roll with it. And
Mhm.
we have fun with new things and new trials and new adventures. That's how she raised me. So I've
Mhm.
I've enjoyed that a lot. But I'm excited to settle into a little bit more of a routine, um, and to not only prepare the team that we have to be a little bit more grounded in our company, to have kind of more solidified procedures, to really connect well and see how we all mesh this year. I know more changes are kind of looming with Sandy sunsetting her business and us absorbing more of her clients. So more change is on the horizon, which I'm excited for.
Right.
Like I said, we really like the change. But I'm excited to pinpoint and to ground certain parts of our business to prepare us and almost invite in those more positive changes and exponential growth.
Yep. Yeah, and just to acknowledge Sandy Lipkowitz and We Make Travel Easy, her business that I don't know how you describe what merger, acquisition, fold into.
yeah, I mean, I think it starts as a merger because she's still really
Yeah.
participating in, and she's helping us in many ways. I mean, she's brilliant and she has so much experience. So it it
It's
it's
it's a
such a
whole
it's a
podcast
blessing. It's
episode.
it's yeah, it sure
And
is.
I will have you guys back for that podcast episode because
Absolutely.
that's a whole nother. And so I didn't want to take away from the story
Sure.
by even bringing it in. So I'm not trying to um, slight Sandy in the lead in the slightest, pun intended. But yeah, it's such a cool another like I said, there's so many layers to what you guys are doing and very interesting and inspiring things that you're doing, and that is another one of them. So all right. Well, thank you so much for being guests today, and sharing all your wisdom and sharing your stories and sharing your success and even your insider tips. It's really inspiring. You guys are, you just have a lot to be proud of, and I hope you are.
Thank
Oh,
you.
thank you. Thank you, Meredith, for your support and for GTN and the community. I have to say, we are just really happy. And
Oh,
it's really amazing to be able to say that with stress and all the other things that go along with this, having a community and having this company behind us with the team that just handles everything so beautifully. It just allows us to do what we do. And
yeah,
I can't imagine that I would still be in this business if I had not found Gifted Travel Network.
that's
Honestly.
amazing. That's amazing. Well, that's a great place to end. Thank you.
Thank you.